Well, wasn't that just fine and dandy? Old Uncle Guido certainly does want to send his love your way. And what we're trying to do here is help you get to the next plane of consciousness. We are ready to evolve as a species, moving to a higher degree of vibration. Some could call that the fourth or fifth dimension of reality. And so we've been held down here in third dimension for eons, and there are those that would like to keep us here, as I brought that up before. So one of the basic ways to start training you in how to reach your higher self, the higher vibrations, to expand your bandwidth of perceptibility, is to work with the three tools that I use in teaching you, and that is the tarot, numerology, which we're going to get into today, and astrology. Okay? Tarot, astrology, numerology, or what I call working on your spiritual tan. We're going to get you gacking some of that Guido dust today and slather you up with some spiritual sunscreen and start working on your tan. And the first thing that I think is important to learn in any of these divinatory practices like tarot, astrology, and numerology. Numerology is the easiest one. Let's start there because it's numbers, and everything is numbers. Your birthday is a number. Your address is a number. We can take your name and relate it to the numbers. See, so A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, so on and so forth. And then I'll have a little chart coming up, but first of all, I want you to know what the basics of the numbers are. And we begin with the basics by looking at the number 0. 0 is not a number. It represents no thing. And then later on, when we combine the 0 with a number like 10, 1, 0, it actually takes that number and amplifies it to the power of 10. Or if you had another 0, to the power of 100. So 0, what it represents is this odd little window or porthole or stargate to the other realm of spirit before you incarnated. And it is through the 0 that we see in the Fool card here, numbered 0, that you step into this reality from the spiritual realm. You are a spirit having a physical experience. You create this avatar, this body, and you inhabit it. It's a little meat bag that you put on like a trench coat and walk around the planet and do things, and make choices, and bump your head and scrape your knees, and go to the store and eat some groceries, and all the things you do here in this material plane. Spirits are lined up around the block waiting for bodies to become available so that they can come down into third dimensional reality. Forget the totality of everything, which is what the 0 is about. Everything is in the 0. Everything and nothing. It is the all and the nothing. And it is this magical little thing that we come out of, like a big vagina. We just come out of the nothingness into the this, and here we are. So once we get here, that's on the 0, and we'll be talking more and more about these things. So when I lay out these ideas, I'm going to give you key words. And I want you to focus just on the most minimal key words, even though all of these numbers have definitions that go on and on and on. But we're just going to touch on the key words. So when you see a 0, you start thinking of magic. You start thinking of the ability to multiply by tens and adding zeros. Let's add a bunch of zeros to our bank account, shall we? Anyway. So the first idea after the 0 is when we come into this reality, it's like, in numerology, the idea is everything is vibration. And so at the very beginning of the creation of this reality, some people say there was a Big Bang. I don't happen to think so, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, the Bible says it like this: in the beginning was the Word. And so Word gives you the indication that there was something spoken, some sort of noise, some sort of audibility, some sort of vibration that set everything in motion. And coming out of nothingness into somethingness. Okay? So that first act is what we call the 1. And it's going from a 0 point to a destination, straight line, here or there. And that 1 in numerology, every time you see a 1, I want you to start thinking about beginnings and leadership and motion and male energy. The 1 is like a phallus, so it's male energy. It's all the ideas behind the yang in Eastern philosophy go along with the 1. And it also represents thought and logical mind. I've got an idea, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this new journey. And that's what we see in the Fool here. He leaps off from the other side and he incarnates into life. And what we don't recall, here's the 1, is that we are all the magician. We are all the crown of creation royalty. And we need to remember ourselves as this, because the universe, the energy that is in everything, is inside of us. And our spirit took on this body to come into the physicality and play with the stuff here in third dimensional matter, to have record collections, to marry, and all these experiences. Like I said, people are lined up around the galaxy trying to get in on this planet, because this is the planet where, number 1, you forget everything. And that's part of the 2 idea. This veil of forgetfulness comes over your mind, and you're down here and you don't know what's going on, and your family's telling you stuff, and your government's telling you stuff, and your religion's telling you stuff, and you're trying to figure it out from scratch. And this is where the most spiritual growth takes place, is on this plane, right here on good old Mother Earth. This is a veiled reality. You have to go in blind every time that you incarnate here, and you do reincarnate over and over until you get the lessons right. And you can get trapped here because you're attached to certain things, and you need to finish up the energy that goes along with those attachments. So after the 1, we're trying to get through just the basics on the numbers here, and I keep tangentializing off into all sorts of different things, and we're going to keep coming back around to this stuff. But after the 1, you have the 2, and where the 1 was logic and male, the 2 is female and intuition. So it's kind of like both hemispheres of the brain. And the 2 is where duality forms, and the hot and the cold, the light and the dark. Should I do this or should I do that? So the key word whenever you see a 2 is choices. And where the 1 wants to go out into the world and participate, the 2 kind of holds back and says, I need to go within and think this over and weigh out my choices before I make something. The 2, this feminine energy that has split off from the whole 0 into the 1 and into the feminine, is kind of like half a heart. When you look at how the 2 is formulated, it's like half a heart sitting on the material plane here. And so what the 2 is always trying to do is reunite. And so it's a female energy, and she wants to reunite with her lover, and she wants to bring wholeness back together, because from the 0 you had wholeness, but you also had nothing. And then you did something which separated that out, and then that separated into the 2 dualities of male and female, yin and yang, logic and intuition. The 2 is the key to all of our teachings here, because it's that go within, to listen to the counsel of the still voice within, the intuition, that voice of God that resides in each and every one of us in the heart. Okay, the 1, the magician, is in the mind. The 2, the high priestess, is in the heart. And there are brain centers in your gut, in your heart, in your mind, in your hair. This whole organism is a sensory perception organism. And we are learning how to listen to those various languages of the gut, of the heart. And we know how to listen to the mind. It just kind of runs the show here, and this is where ego comes into play. But anyway, moving on to number 3. When you take a male energy 1 and you put the male energy into the 2, the female energy, you have creation, creativity. The seed is planted and the sprout comes along. And so 3 is the notion of creativity. Now, one thing I must stress about creativity is it's a state of play. And we forget that. We get so serious about everything. Your mother wants to buy you that toy. Your Mother Earth wants to provide you with everything you need. 3 is all about the mother, the creativity, the nurturing, the Mother Nature. Nurture nature, see? So when you see a 3, think about creativity and providing and abundance and fecundity. And this is represented in the Tarot by the Empress, okay? So one thing in my teaching is that numerology and Tarot go hand in hand. And so you can look at the first 10 archetypes of the major arcana of the Tarot, which I'll explain later when we get to Tarot, and know that you can get ideas about numerology in these cards. So after we start out on our mission with the leadership of the 1, we make some choices with the 2, and we create something with the 3. We come to the 4, which is the Emperor. And so this represents the structure of things, okay? I've planted this seed in the garden, I tilled it, and I worked it. And that's the idea that the 4 is all about. It's about work and structure and the power that comes from building these things up. But it's also reaping what you have sown of your harvest, from the seeds you've planted in the 3 to the work that you've done to bring them into reality. So 4 represents, again, male energy coming back around. Things that are structured, like this is how you build a house. This is how the government works to provide you all the services in the society. This is how you pay your taxes. This is how you go to work and get a paycheck. All of these very structured, working, doing, physical labor things are under the idea of the 4. Well, after a long week of working, what do you want to do? You want to kick back and say, forget that. And so we come to the idea of the 5. So remember, here's the 4, the old Emperor. He's nice and solid on his throne. And then we come to the 5. And I prefer the Roman numeral 5 because those first 4 numbers represent spirit coming into matter and creating on the material plane. And that's this little V coming down. And then at the 5, you're standing there going, well, there's got to be more to life than this. And you look up and go, show me. What else is there? God help me. You know, whatever you're into. It's like, there's got to be more to life than just this work and this drudgery and facing the consequences of my actions. And so this is where we get back into the idea of higher mind. And the 5 really works best as a combination of the 2 and 3. The 5 just wants to take the day off and play, and it wants to be in nature, so that's the 3 again. It wants to kind of look at the different choices and play with them and savor them and goof around with them and not be locked into one set pattern. It wants freedom. That's a key word. Freedom and change are the key words to the 5. Okay? Now, for some reason in medieval days, they decided to give you a pope to look at there who looks just like another emperor. That represents freedom and change. Well, I disagree with that, and we're ready to evolve beyond some of these medieval concepts. But we'll work with that and talk about that and see how there is validity here, because it represents higher mind as well. And when you're starting to look to your higher self, what's the deal here? Is there a spirit? Do I have these bigger questions start coming in on the 5? And you get out in the nature and you see a whole different thing. Then you go back to work and you're like, Anyway. We're moving through the numbers right now. I don't want to get too off track here. So the next thing we come to, after we're out there playing around with the day off, we want to have somebody to share that with. And that is the 6. And 6 is all about love, relationships, but most importantly, service to others, how we interact with others. And it's more important what you give than what you receive in this fulfillment thing. And so we get into all sorts of sticky wickets with love there and taking more than we get. And it gets into complications there that really start building up karmic ramifications of energies that we need to see both sides of and stuff like that. And the interesting thing about the 6 is most people draw it like this from the top down into the center thing. So what this represents is you're seeking an energy outside of yourself and trying to draw it into the center to find some form of fulfillment. And so aspects of the 2 and the 3, 2 times 3 equals 6, are kind of more of this nurturing. It's very much like the octave of the 3. It's a very nurturing number. It wants to be with a partner. It wants to go out to dinner and have fun and have a nice little home and family, and all these sort of things are in the idea of the 6. Well, once you've had enough of that home and family and people and relationships and stuff like that, you just kind of go, I need a break. I need to get away from it all. I need to be on my own for a minute. I need to go sit in the tub and read something. I need to just get away from it all. And we start getting into the number of the 7, the idea of the 7. And the 7 is a very, very complex idea. It represents a lot of things biblically, spiritually, through organized religion. On the 7th day, God rested. And so that's kind of that pause, that repast. It's kind of like the 5. The 5 wants to go in also. It's kind of like the 2. The 2 wants to go in. So 2 plus 5 is 7. I hope I'm not confusing y'all. It gets a little... There's a lot of information I'm trying to grok in here. I'm just sprinkling that Guido dust all over the place. But spirituality, which is likened to but a different thing from religion. Religion, they hand you their ideas and they say, believe this. Spirituality is the actual act of going within and finding that inner still voice and listening to it and working with it and creating your own symbiotic relationship with the universe, with spirit, with God. And all of these ideas are within the 7. And so 7 is kind of a little bit of a recluse, but it's also when you go into this 7 space that the light comes on, that epiphany, that eureka, I found it kind of thing pops into your mind, and you go, oh, I got this idea, and you bring that back. And so ever since we get into the 6 and forward, we're starting to work with others. And we're starting to bring them into our tribe, our family with the 6, our spiritual ideas about the bigger picture stories with the 7. And that idea of service to one another, of including everybody and to making it better for the whole, starts with the 6. And if you look at the 6, it's kind of like a half 8. It's still trying to put all the pieces together. So coming out of the 6, into the 7, into the 8 now, and you're trying to do the work for everybody now, not just yourself. And the 8 is the lemniscate, which represents the symbol of infinity. And the 8 is true power. It's like the 4, only squared. So all the hard work that you learn in the 4, in the 8, you become like the leader of the corporation or the movie star on stage commanding the presence. You realize how to really work the energies of the material world, at least as far as we know how to do it now. And someday we'll get to the point where, like Harry Potter, where we can pull the actual molecules out of the nothingness into physical manifestation. But that's later on. We'll talk about that down the road here. We're still in the beginnings of learning the numbers here. So the 8 really represents the infinite ability to create, and this is what we're here to do. So let's look at the picture for the 7. Represents getting on your spiritual track, and that guy's called the charioteer. He's going down the right path finally. And then we come to the 8, and when we relate the 8 to the strength card of the tarot, she's got that lemniscate, that 8 right above her head, which represents her ability to wield materiality in an infinite capacity. But it is governed by, and it was beauty that tamed the savage beast. So anytime you go storming in there with your one energy, I got an idea, I'm going to bowl it over, and you use your emperor, I'm going to take control and rule everything, you start getting into this real kind of funky use of power. But when you go in there gently, coming out of the 6 into the 7 with spirituality, others, spirituality, and manifestation, that gentle taming of those wild energies into directed manifestation, the 8 really starts to work on a level you would not even believe. And this is where we start getting into the ideas of the secret that we've talked before. And I'm kind of rambling off, tangentializing. Let's finish up the numbers. After the 8, so when we see the 8, numerologically we want to think of power. 7, spirit. 8, power. 9, completion. Here's old Led Zeppelin 4 for you, sticking right in your face there. The wisdom of the hermit, shining his lamp of illumination to ease your way. So when we see the 9, we want to think of completion, endings, and wisdom. The wisdom gained from going down that path, making these various choices, creating this or that, reaping what we sow, asking for help from above, expanding our mind, going into relationships, getting on the spiritual expansion track of the 7, manifesting on a bigger level of the 8, and seeing all of the lessons of the numbers are within the 9. The 9 is everything, and it represents completion of life at this cycle. And then as we complete and we review and we prune away the dead and we get ready for the next planting, we move to the next level of the 10-1. 1 plus 0 is the 10-1. And the tarot cards represent the archetypical symbols of this numerological journey, of this spiritual journey, of the spiritual fool coming into physicality and going through these various stages to his own self-perfection, her self-perfection, reunification with the all, the Allah, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, no thing, the nowhere, the now here. You know, Uncle Guido has been studying this a long time. And one of the byproducts of starting to incorporate these ideas to your everyday normal thinking is it starts to expand and you start to get information on a different level. We okay? Okay. I had to check in with my babu over there. He's looking funny. His eyes are kind of crossing. I hope I'm not crossing your guy's eye with all this meta-babble drivel that Uncle Guido likes to spew out his pie hole from time to time. But anyway, what we're trying to do is get you to broaden your definition of your reality. Take all the things you think you believe, like I said before, and set them over here. And now, every time you see a 5, 5 is a real crucial one. That's where we start to go from day-to-day mundane activities of creation, which is going on constantly. And we start to say, Uncle Guido, God, Buddha, whoever I'm into, Jesus, what's going on here? There's got to be something more to life than this. What's the deal here? So every time you see a 5, start thinking change, freedom. Every time you see a 4, okay, this is about work. This is about structure. This is how I nail 2x4s together to make a square wall and build a house. Every time you see a 3, we're in the creativity part. You know, it's like I'm going to Grandma's for a great dinner and she's always got milk and cookies and everything's lovey-dovey and just so much fun. You know, that sort of thing is the 3, that nurturing. The hardest one to grok is probably the 2, because here's the high priestess, the virgin, before the pregnant empress, and she's kind of guarding the mystery. Let's go back to this little picture here. She's holding the keys that get you behind the veil to see the truth here. So when you see a 2, it's all about your choices. Should I do this? Should I do that? Is it hot? Is it cold? But instead of trying to work it out solely logically up in your head according to what they've always told you should do, you come down here in your heart and in your gut and you say, how does this really sit with me? How does this feel? How can I get to a deeper resonance of understanding what's going on here? And this is actually the key that starts opening up your own intuitive pathways, linking the 2 hemispheres of the left and right brain. The left is the logic center, thinking, male, yang. The right is the feminine, creative, intuitive, feeling more. And when this center of the brain is allowed to feed you information, it's not like it comes through in perfect English context words. It's more like it's pictures about whole scenes, and it has a feeling and a flavor and maybe even sometimes a smell to it that you're reminded of. I mean, think right now about a favorite song of yours and how you can like just focus on that song and hear the notes playing in your head. This comes from that creative center, see? And what we're trained to do in the secular world of man's is, you know, the controllers don't need much more than cattle to show up to those jobs and keep providing the goods that they need and keeping their coffers filled. So they don't want to tell you about these things, because once you start working with these things and your bandwidth of perception starts opening up, you start claiming your rightful position as a sovereign in control of your reality, in total command, and they no longer have sway over telling you how to behave in this reality. Now, we have a lot of work as a society to get to this thing of all of us reclaiming our sovereignty. But this is why Uncle Guido's here going through all this minutia, trying to bring these esoteric ideas, these higher wisdom teachings into your presence, so that you can become initiated and start to take the steps of raising your vibration incrementally. Like I said before, there's a lot of study involved here. I'm going to try and make it as fun and easy for you and throw it out. And I realize that I'm going over a lot of stuff here and it gets confusing. So don't hesitate to, when you're watching this on YouTube, to leave a comment, ask a question. I can answer any questions. You can call me up. We could do readings. We could look at your charts. We could set you up a numerology chart. We can do all sorts of things. We can go through all of the numbers, but this is the very basics. I want you to just kind of chew on this like a dog with a bone, trying to extract the marrow of my meaning in this metaphysical meandering of my my teaching on numerology here. Just take these basic ideas of the numbers. 1 beginning, 2 choices, 3 creativity, 4 work, 5 change, 6 relationship, 7 spirituality, 8 power, 9 completion, 10 new beginning on a whole new level. Starts all over again. And there's lots of formulas. The thing with numerology that we get into is we can take any word and reduce it to a number by just associating the numbers associated with them, A, 1, B, 2, C, 3. We can look at your birthday, and we're going to get into this, looking at dates and times and seeing what the vibrations of the numbers are in our very next video here coming up in a couple of days. And we're going to start seeing how to write out these formulas mathematically and get the meaning from them, just from these very basic meanings. See, so like my birthday equates down to a 30-3. When you add up the year I was born, the day I was born, the month I was born, it all equals a 30 in the way I calculate it. Now, I must tell you a little something about numerology. There are several methods of calculating numbers. We have the ancient Chaldean method of numerology, and it's a little bit different. Then we have the Hebrew version of numerology, gematria, and that's encoded in the Hebrew language and into the Bible and stuff like that. So there's a very different way of numbering things and stuff that is valid, and when you go down that pathway, it opens up a whole new level of information for you. What we have here is more of the bastardized Western, easy-cheapy English way of looking at numerology, and it works very, very well for me. The information I can get on a person's chart from their birthday and their name represents all their tools that they bring for this lifetime to work with. It also gets into aspects of the karma from past lives that needs to be ironed out and worked with, so lessons that are coming. You can look at things like what's going to come easy to you in this lifetime, what's going to be hard, what are your tools that you have, what are your gifts, what are your proclivities, are you a leader, are you a lover, are you a teacher, are you a nurturer, you know, we can get into defining all of these levels of who you are, of what's going on in your space and time around you through dates and stuff like that. And then all of this dovetails back on to the tarot, and also dovetails in correspondence right back into astrology too. So in a logical, mental minutia kind of way, it gets quite complicated, but at a certain point all of these ideas come back in, and then all of a sudden these cards just jump off the page and they start telling you stuff. What? Huh? Ooh, really? You don't say. Bobby? Oh, okay. Anyway, it starts talking to you, and your psychic centers open up, and you start to see aspects of the past, present, and future all in one, because there is no real time except in this reality. Some people call that the fourth dimension, but it's not. Anyway, old Uncle Guido here, just kind of bringing you the basics, and I hope it's clear, but if not, feel free to send me an email at our little address there on the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, do all the stuff you're supposed to do with these things. Get the word out there. Share with your friends. Say, check out this weird dude spreading his Guido dust all around. Working on your spiritual tan. I'm the man. We're going to sit here and figure it out together. Uncle Guido, over and out.